The Xalkar were a race of beings like no other. Their empire stretched across the stars, a sprawling network of worlds that trembled at their might. With their superior technology, they had crushed civilizations far more advanced than humanity, and there was no reason to believe Earth would be any different. To them, humans were insignificant, a young species, barely scratching the surface of space travel, with no understanding of the greater universe that lay beyond. But the Xalkar underestimated one thing: the heart of humanity. When the ultimatum arrived, it was a moment of collective shock. Earth's leaders, politicians, military commanders, scientists, and strategists came together in an emergency meeting, scrambling to comprehend the gravity of the situation. On one screen, the Xalkar's message blared across the room, delivered in their cold, calculated tone. Their terms were simple: surrender all military capabilities, submit to Xalkar rule, or face annihilation. They didn't wait for a response before ending the transmission. The room fell into stunned silence. The sheer arrogance of the Xalkar was overwhelming, but it was the certainty of their threat that hung in the air. Earth had never faced an enemy like this. Humanity had barely begun to explore the stars, and the technology at their disposal was no match for the Xalkar's vast fleets and devastating weaponry. Even the brightest minds in Earth's defense sector struggled to come up with a viable strategy. How could humanity, just a single planet in a galaxy of giants, hope to survive against an empire that had crushed civilizations without breaking a sweat? But there was something more than fear in the hearts of Earth's leaders. There was defiance. As the hours passed, heated discussions broke out across the globe. Some advocated surrender, fearing the destruction of everything humanity had worked for. Others, however, stood firm. This was not the first time humanity had faced overwhelming odds. History was littered with examples of underdogs who rose against impossible foes. It was in their DNA, a fierce will to survive, an unyielding desire to protect their own. The most unexpected voice came from an unlikely place. A young, untested military strategist named Commander Elisa Hunt. She was a rising star in the Earth Defense Coalition, known for her unconventional thinking and sharp tactical mind. While the world leaders debated, Hunt stood before them, calm but resolute. "We don't know how to defeat them in battle," she said, her voice steady. "But we do know how to fight. We've survived every threat thrown at us throughout history, not because we had the biggest weapons or the largest armies. We survived because we fought smart. We adapted. We're not just going to roll over and die. We're going to make them regret ever setting foot here." Her words struck a chord. A collective resolve began to form. The war might seem lost already, but humanity wouldn't give up without a fight. Plans were set in motion, not for an immediate offensive, but for resistance, a strategy to outthink, outblast, and ultimately, outsmart the invaders. The Xalkar had sent their challenge, expecting an easy conquest. What they had failed to understand was that they had awakened something in humanity, a fire that would burn bright against their arrogance. As Earth's leaders gave the order, the human race united in defiance, preparing to face the unimaginable. The real battle had only just begun. As the world adjusted to the crushing reality of the Xalkar's threat, a sense of urgency spread across Earth. The enemy's fleet was vast, and their power seemingly unmatched. In every major city, people watched in disbelief as reports poured in. Alien ships of unimaginable size hovering over their skies, weapons primed to devastate entire continents in a single blow. Humanity's military might was laughable in comparison, and Earth's leaders had no choice but to prepare for the worst. But amidst the growing sense of doom, there was one faint glimmer of hope. A small, secretive program, known only to a select few, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. In a top-secret research facility buried deep beneath the Earth's surface, a group of scientists and engineers had been working on something extraordinary for years. Their work was initially intended for future exploration, a means to make humanity's military capable of competing on a galactic stage. But now, with the Xalkar on their doorstep, it was their only chance at survival. Dr. Claire Addison, a brilliant AI specialist, was the head of the project. Her team had developed a revolutionary artificial intelligence system, a neural network designed to rapidly process and analyze vast amounts of combat data, improving human military strategies. What made it unique was its ability to adapt and evolve with every engagement. The AI wasn't just a tool for decision-making. It could predict enemy movements, simulate hundreds of possible outcomes, and recommend strategies in real time. Despite its potential, the system had never been tested in a real combat scenario, and the risks were enormous. Dr. Addison and her team had always believed the AI would be a game-changer for humanity's future, just not like this. With the clock ticking, the decision was made. The AI would be activated, and humanity's survival would rest on its shoulders. The moment the system came online, Dr. Addison felt a strange mixture of excitement and dread. The AI's interface flooded the screens, its complex algorithms instantly calculating the best strategies for Earth's defense. It began to assimilate data from satellite feeds, military reports, and intercepted communications from the Xalkar fleet. The AI didn't just suggest strategies based on probability. It seemed to intuitively understand human psychology, recognizing patterns that the Xalkar hadn't anticipated. As the days passed, the AI's calculations proved invaluable. In simulations, it predicted the Xalkar's movements with unnerving accuracy. It identified weaknesses in the alien fleet's formation, flaws in their hierarchical command structure, and most critically, their overconfidence. But it wasn't just about the numbers. The AI's suggestions were often unorthodox, taking into account humanity's resourcefulness and ability to improvise in the face of overwhelming odds. It became clear that humanity's greatest advantage might not be advanced technology, but their sheer unpredictability. When the first battle took place, it wasn't the colossal space battles that made headlines, but rather the small, almost insignificant victories, attacks on supply lines, ambushes in asteroid belts, and strikes against vulnerable Xalkar outposts. These were not decisive, world-altering victories, but they sent a message. Humanity was not going to fold without a fight. The Xalkar were forced to reassess. Earth wasn't just surviving. It was making them work for every inch. Commander Elisa Hunt, now working in tandem with the AI, saw the potential of the new strategy. She was no longer fighting alone. With every recommendation from the AI, humanity was taking small but deliberate steps toward a much larger goal: to prove that the Xalkar had made a grave mistake in underestimating the human race. In those first few encounters, as the Xalkar began to encounter more resistance than they had expected, a single vital truth became clear to both sides. The war was not over. It had only just begun. The first wave of the Xalkar fleet arrived just days after the AI system was activated. As their massive ships entered Earth's orbit, the alien invaders didn't waste time. They deployed ground forces, expecting to overwhelm humanity in a matter of hours. Their technology was far superior: biomechanical soldiers, energy weapons capable of vaporizing entire cities, and shields that could withstand anything Earth's military might throw at them. The Xalkar assumed that Earth would crumble before the full force of their might. What they didn't anticipate was humanity's resilience and creativity. While Earth's leaders scrambled to form a cohesive defense, Commander Elisa Hunt understood one crucial fact: they could not win a direct confrontation. They were outgunned, outclassed, and underprepared. But they still had the one thing the Xalkar couldn't predict: the ability to think outside the box. Instead of facing the Xalkar head-on in large-scale battles, Hunt's strategy was simple: guerrilla tactics. She instructed Earth's military forces to avoid fighting in open fields where the Xalkar's superior weaponry would decimate them. Instead, they used their knowledge of Earth's varied terrain to their advantage. Mountains, dense forests, and urban environments all became part of the battlefield. Humanity's soldiers quickly adapted to the new style of warfare, employing hit-and-run tactics, sabotaging supply lines, and disrupting alien communications. The Xalkar were unprepared for such tactics. In their previous conquests, they had faced enemies who relied on conventional warfare, and they crushed them effortlessly. But Earth's forces were unpredictable. They didn't engage in pitched battles. They struck with precision, vanishing into the chaos before the Xalkar could respond. Small rebel groups scattered across the globe made coordinated, devastating strikes against key infrastructure. Alien supply depots were torched, weapons caches destroyed, and communication relays intercepted. One of the first major successes came in the dense forests of northern Canada. A small, elite team of soldiers, equipped with the latest experimental technology, managed to ambush a group of Xalkar ground units. The alien soldiers were formidable, but they couldn't navigate the dense, snowy wilderness as easily as the humans. The ambush crippled the Xalkar's advance, forcing them to regroup. The humans didn't need to win every fight. They just needed to keep the invaders off balance. Across the world, similar tactics were being employed. In the Amazon rainforest, a series of decoy operations misled the Xalkar into pursuing false targets. In cities like Paris and New York, guerrilla fighters struck with surgical precision, destroying alien machines and causing chaos in the Xalkar's ranks. Every strike, no matter how small, sent a powerful message. Humanity wasn't afraid to fight back. The Xalkar were growing frustrated. Their advanced weaponry could level entire cities, but they were losing control of the situation. The alien invaders were used to conquering planets with sheer force, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with such cunning and resourcefulness. The guerrilla tactics were wearing down their confidence, and worse, their supply chains were being ravaged. A sense of panic began to set in among the Xalkar commanders, who were now forced to adapt to an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Commander Hunt watched from the war room as the initial reports came in. The AI had calculated that the Xalkar, so reliant on their overwhelming strength, would be unable to sustain the prolonged campaign. The guerrilla tactics were working. Humanity was striking at the very foundation of the Xalkar's plans, and though the war was far from over, there was something deeper taking shape, an unspoken belief that Earth's victory, while improbable, was no longer impossible. But the Xalkar weren't finished yet. They would soon escalate their response. Humanity's ingenuity had bought them time, but the real battle was still ahead. As the days passed, the war between Earth and the Xalkar shifted from a one-sided invasion to a drawn-out conflict that neither side had expected. The Xalkar, accustomed to swift victories over weaker species, were now facing a challenge that tested their expectations and their strategies. Humanity was proving to be more than just a resilient opponent. It was becoming a force to be reckoned with. The guerrilla tactics had disrupted the Xalkar's advance, but there was more to Earth's newfound strength than ambushes and sabotage. As the Xalkar struggled to adjust, the AI that Dr. Claire Addison's team had developed continued to prove invaluable. It wasn't just about predicting enemy movements anymore. The AI was now helping humanity develop strategies for larger-scale engagements, advising on everything from resource allocation to psychological warfare. It was transforming the way Earth's forces approached the battle, turning the tide inch by inch. One of the most significant shifts in the war came when Earth's leaders realized that they didn't have to beat the Xalkar in a traditional sense. They didn't need to destroy every alien ship or wipe out every soldier. The true weapon humanity possessed was its adaptability, its ability to fight back no matter the odds. Earth's forces began using the same tactics that had worked on the ground, hitting vulnerable points in the Xalkar's fleet, targeting weak spots in their command structure, and exploiting the aliens' overconfidence. The Xalkar fleet, once so vast and seemingly invincible, began to show signs of strain. While the aliens had superior firepower, they lacked the ability to adapt quickly. As Earth's forces continued to fight with tenacity, the Xalkar started making mistakes, strategic errors that they would never have made against lesser opponents. The humans, drawing on their vast knowledge of warfare and history, were slowly chipping away at the Tsalkar's advantage. In the midst of this growing conflict, Commander Elisa Hunt emerged as a key figure. Her unorthodox strategies had already won the respect of her peers, but now she was becoming a symbol of humanity's strength. She was not just a leader, she was a symbol of defiance. Hunt understood the psychological impact of the war as much as she understood military tactics. As she continued to orchestrate small victories, she made sure the entire world knew about them. Humanity needed hope, and she was determined to give them just that. She spoke to the people of Earth in a series of broadcasted messages, rallying them to the cause. "We are not an empire of conquerors," she said in one of her most famous speeches, "but we are a people who refuse to be broken. Every victory, no matter how small, is proof that we are still standing. The Tsalkar may think they can crush us, but they have forgotten one simple truth. We fight for what is ours, and we will never surrender." These words resonated deeply. Across the globe, people who had once cowered in fear began to take up arms, to join the fight, to contribute in any way they could. Scientists turned to technology, engineers began building new weapons, and civilians worked to support the war effort. The Tsalkar could no longer claim that humanity was divided or disorganized. Earth was united, and their will to fight was stronger than ever. But the Tsalkar had not yet begun to fight with their full strength. The next phase of the war would test humanity's resolve like never before. The battle for Earth was far from over, and the Tsalkar were not about to give up easily. Their forces would adapt, but so would humanity. And now, Earth's greatest weapon was no longer just the will to survive. It was the unshakable belief that no matter the odds, humanity would never back down. The turning point came sooner than anyone expected. The Tsalkar had been convinced that humanity's resistance would falter under the weight of their technological superiority. But now, they were beginning to realize how wrong they had been. The unrelenting guerrilla tactics, the growing global unity, and the unexpected strikes from Earth's forces were shaking their confidence. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to surprise, and to evolve under pressure. One of the most pivotal moments came when the Tsalkar flagship, a colossal warship known as the Ravager, was crippled in a daring raid led by Commander Elisa Hunt. The Ravager was the heart of the Tsalkar fleet, a vessel so powerful that it was believed to be invincible. Its weapons could obliterate entire cities with a single shot, and its shields could withstand the most devastating assaults. But the humans had learned their enemy's weaknesses, and they had developed a plan to exploit them. It wasn't just the AI that guided the humans in this mission. It was the ingenuity of Earth's finest minds, working together in ways the Tsalkar could never have imagined. The humans knew that the Ravager was heavily reliant on a specific set of coordinates to power its shield systems. If those coordinates could be disrupted, the shield would drop, leaving the ship vulnerable. The raid was risky, too risky for anyone else, but Hunt and her team were determined to strike a blow to the heart of the alien fleet. Under the cover of darkness, a team of elite soldiers infiltrated the flagship's command center, breaching its outer defenses with precision and stealth. They fought their way through the alien ship's corridors, taking out Tsalkar soldiers in close-quarter combat. As they approached the central control hub, the Tsalkar commander overseeing the ship's operations was already preparing for Earth's inevitable defeat, convinced that no force could penetrate their defenses. But as the soldiers reached the heart of the ship, they triggered a hidden EMP device that temporarily disabled the Ravager's shields. The timing was perfect. Just as the shields flickered and failed, Earth's remaining fleet of warships, led by Captain Marcus Langford, unleashed a coordinated barrage of firepower. The Ravager's hull was breached, and the mighty flagship was sent crashing into the moon's surface in a violent explosion that sent shockwaves through the Tsalkar ranks. The loss was catastrophic for the Tsalkar. Their most powerful vessel, their symbol of invincibility, was no more. Earth's forces celebrated the victory, but it was not a moment of arrogance. Instead, it served as a stark reminder to the Tsalkar that humanity was capable of feats they had never anticipated. The psychological impact on the invaders was immediate. The Ravager wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol of their dominance, and its destruction shattered the illusion of invulnerability the Xalkar had carried with them into the war. In the wake of this attack, the Xalkar High Command issued a public statement, attempting to reassert their superiority. But their words rang hollow. Earth's resistance had proven that the Xalkar were not unbeatable. And worse, the cracks in their confidence had begun to spread throughout the fleet. Behind the scenes, panic was growing among the Xalkar commanders. If humanity could land such a devastating blow, what else could they accomplish? The war was no longer a matter of simple conquest. It was a battle for survival, and for the first time since the invasion began, the Xalkar were starting to question whether they could win. As the humans celebrated their victory, Commander Hunt stood before her team, her eyes fixed on the distant stars. "This is just the beginning," she said. "The Xalkar will come at us harder, but we've shown them that we are not to be underestimated. We are stronger than they thought. And now we've got them on the defensive." Earth's forces were emboldened by the success, but the war was far from over. The Xalkar were not finished yet, and their next move would be even more desperate. The destruction of the Ravager sent shockwaves through the Xalkar fleet, but it also ignited a fury that would have far-reaching consequences. Earth's small but significant victory had shifted the balance of the war, and the Xalkar, desperate to regain control, wasted no time in launching a brutal counteroffensive. Their pride was wounded, and their desire for dominance became an all-consuming need for retribution. The Xalkar unleashed a series of devastating strikes across Earth's major cities. Instead of the typical surgical attacks that had characterized their invasion, they now deployed their full might, hammering Earth with brutal efficiency. Alien warships descended from the skies, and their biomechanical soldiers ravaged the surface, overwhelming human defenses. Earth's military forces, though emboldened by the victory over the Ravager, found themselves struggling to keep pace with the alien onslaught. The Xalkar had learned from their earlier mistakes. They adjusted their strategies, deploying faster, more coordinated units designed to counter humanity's guerrilla tactics. The once imposing alien fleet, now restructured and refocused, moved with a renewed purpose. Earth's fighters, despite their ingenuity and resilience, were not prepared for this level of aggression. Cities like Tokyo, London, and New York found themselves under siege, their defenses crumbling beneath the sheer firepower of the Xalkar assault. But Commander Elisa Hunt had not given up hope. She knew this counterattack was the Xalkar's attempt to break humanity's spirit, to force them into submission. But Hunt refused to let fear take hold. Her team had seen how quickly the Xalkar had become overconfident, and she knew they could be made to falter again. The key was to keep them guessing, to make them second-guess every move. While Earth's major cities burned, Hunt focused on the smaller, more vulnerable targets, the supply lines that the Xalkar needed to maintain their assault. She turned to the AI, now fully integrated into Earth's military command structure, for guidance. The AI analyzed Xalkar ship movements and identified an opportunity. A small fleet of supply vessels, crucial to the aliens' war effort, was traveling through a relatively unprotected sector of space. With precise coordination, Earth's forces launched a daring strike to cripple the Xalkar supply chain. The operation was risky, but it paid off. The strike was a success, and the Xalkar supply lines were disrupted, forcing them to divert precious resources to repair and recover. In the wake of this new setback, the Xalkar were forced to split their forces even thinner. The relentless pressure they had put on Earth began to take its toll. Their confidence had taken another blow, and their once unified fleet began to show signs of fractures. The AI had predicted it. Xalkar overextension was a predictable outcome when they had spread their forces too far, and humanity had used this weakness to its advantage. However, the price was steep. Earth's forces, still reeling from the Xalkar's initial assault, were stretched thin, and morale was beginning to suffer. Cities that had once been symbols of human strength now lay in ruins, their people struggling to rebuild as alien ships continued to orbit in the skies above. The war had become a battle for survival, not just against the Salkar, but against despair itself. As Hunt gazed at the holographic display of Earth's shattered cities, she knew the fight wasn't over. The Salkar had suffered a blow, but they had not been defeated. She needed to keep pressing forward. "We've fought through worse," she said to her commanders. "They want us to break. We're not going to give them the satisfaction. Not now, not ever." Her words, once again, became a rallying cry. Humanity wasn't just defending their planet. They were defending their future. The Salkar had underestimated their resilience before, and now they were going to learn that humanity's will to survive had no bounds. The war had reached a fever pitch. Earth's forces, despite their best efforts, were on the brink of exhaustion. Cities still lay in ruins, the dead numbered in the millions, and the Salkar, though weakened by supply disruptions, continued their brutal assault. Humanity's determination to survive had been pushed to its limits, but now, in the darkest hours of the conflict, the tipping point arrived. Earth's greatest weapon, its ingenuity, was about to evolve once again. Commander Elisa Hunt stood in a dimly lit war room, watching the holographic projections of Salkar troop movements across the globe. The AI had calculated the likely outcomes, but the truth was clear. Humanity could not keep fighting a war of attrition. The resources, the soldiers, the infrastructure, everything was stretched thin. It was only a matter of time before the Salkar realized they could crush Earth's defenses once and for all. Yet there was one thing the Salkar hadn't anticipated: the sheer will of the human race to survive, and the final card humanity still had to play. Dr. Claire Addison, the scientist behind the AI, had been working on a classified project for months. She had quietly continued her work, despite the escalating threats, pushing the boundaries of what the AI could do. She'd been trying to solve one of the war's most difficult problems: how to break through the Salkar's impenetrable shield systems that had stopped humanity's weapons cold in every major battle. Her breakthrough came late one evening. A new energy frequency, one that the Salkar had never encountered, capable of destabilizing their shields. The discovery was revolutionary, but it wasn't enough to simply create a weapon. It had to be deployed strategically. Dr. Addison's theory was that Earth's fleet could use the energy frequency to bypass the Salkar's defense systems, but the mission would be dangerous and precise. It would require every ounce of Earth's remaining strength and a great deal of faith in the AI. Commander Hunt knew this was their best, and possibly their last, chance. She authorized the deployment of a small, elite task force, led by Captain Marcus Langford, to carry out the mission. The plan was simple: infiltrate a high-ranking Salkar command ship, deploy the frequency generator, and trigger a chain reaction in the fleet's shield network. If successful, Earth's forces could finally have the upper hand. The mission was fraught with peril. The task force would have to navigate through enemy territory, avoiding detection at all costs. The Salkar were no longer underestimating humanity. They had become more vigilant, more ruthless. It was a suicide mission, but it was also humanity's last hope. As the task force made its way toward the command ship, the tension was palpable. The final countdown had begun. The AI, having analyzed every possible outcome, gave a chilling prediction. The risk of failure was high. Yet, Hunt's instincts told her they had no choice. "We push forward," she said firmly. "This is humanity's moment. If we can land this strike, the war will change. We'll win. If we don't, then this will be the last stand we have." The task force moved with a precision that defied the odds. They infiltrated the Salkar flagship's defense grid, evading detection, and reached their target, the central control room. There, the device was deployed. The Salkar were caught off guard as the frequency detonated, destabilizing their shields and rendering their defenses useless. For the first time in the war, Humanity had dealt a critical blow to the Xalkar's technological supremacy. The shield network collapsed, and Earth's fleet, mobilized and ready, took immediate action, opening fire on the now vulnerable Xalkar fleet. The shock was immediate. The impact of the frequency generator was immediate and undeniable. As Earth's fleet unleashed a full barrage of weaponry on the now vulnerable Xalkar fleet, the shockwaves reverberated through the hearts of the alien invaders. For the first time since the invasion began, the Xalkar were on the defensive. Their once impenetrable shields had crumbled, and their once mighty forces were scattered, disoriented, and broken. The humanity they had underestimated was now fighting back with a ferocity that would not be denied. Commander Elisa Hunt stood at the helm of Earth's flagship, watching the battle unfold through the war room's holographic display. The tides of war had shifted, and now it was Earth's turn to push forward with all the strength and ingenuity it had left. The Xalkar fleet, though still formidable, was no longer the unstoppable juggernaut it had once been. Humanity had cracked the facade of their invulnerability, and now, with every shot fired, they were proving that Earth would not fall easily. On the battlefield, Captain Marcus Langford led his forces with a newfound determination. The mission had been a success, and now the enemy was reeling. The morale boost across Earth's military was palpable. Every soldier, every fighter, every commander knew they were on the verge of victory. The victory they had longed for, the victory that seemed so distant only weeks ago, was now within reach. The Xalkar, now facing the reality of their vulnerability, tried to regroup. Their remaining ships attempted to form a defensive line, but the cracks in their once unified force were beginning to show. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now it was clear that their attempt to conquer Earth would come at a cost they hadn't prepared for. It was in this moment of chaos that Hunt made the decision that would define the war. Rather than waiting for the Xalkar to attempt a desperate retreat, she ordered a full-scale assault on the Xalkar's command center. The heart of their operation, where the remaining fleet was being coordinated, was located on a massive asteroid base at the edge of the solar system. If humanity could destroy the command center, it would cripple the entire alien fleet and shatter the Xalkar's ability to continue the war. A final push was necessary. Earth's fleet, now invigorated by their recent success, moved with precision toward the asteroid base. Captain Langford led the charge, his fleet taking position in a tactical formation designed to overwhelm the Xalkar defenses. The assault was grueling and costly, but Earth's resolve was unwavering. The Xalkar retaliated fiercely, but they were disorganized. The frequency disruption had created fractures in their command, and without their coordinated leadership, their attempts to defend the asteroid base were ineffective. Earth's forces pushed through, entering the heart of the base, and launching a final strike on the Xalkar's control systems. With a resounding explosion, the command center of the Xalkar fleet was obliterated. The remaining Xalkar forces, disoriented and leaderless, began to retreat, their morale shattered. The war was finally over. Humanity had won. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, Commander Hunt looked out at the stars, her mind racing. The cost of victory had been immense, countless lives lost, entire cities reduced to rubble, and the planet scarred by war. But the Xalkar had underestimated humanity. They had believed that Earth would bend under the weight of their invasion. Instead, humanity had shown them that no matter the odds, no matter the size of the enemy, Earth would always stand tall. In the years to come, Earth would rebuild. The scars of war would remain, but the legacy of this battle would be one of unity, resilience, and the unshakable will to fight for survival.